and I think most people agree that you've got to have a private partnership, that those
Right.
work the best. I think in a time of a disaster, I'm so sorry, I'm going to
It's
try to
okay.
put that away, but I think in the time of a disaster, you know, Alexander Haig did it, other people do it. You step in and you say, I'm in charge
Yeah.
here. And, you know, hopefully that will give way soon to an understanding. Many of the nonprofits there are not functioning right now. I work with a nonprofit here who's works with homeless services for families, and we're focused on trying to get some resources to them, and we can't even get in contact with them.
Right. Yeah.
Right, but there doesn't even need to be an organization. I guess what I'm saying is people who are okay in that situation and have the mental, emotional, physical resources to help others do. And that being unacknowledged is weird.
It
It
is.
seems
It
like
is
that should
weird.
be harnessed, right? And it seems to me that's one of the divides. It's underappreciated at the local.
Well, yeah. So two things here. I spend more than half the year in Texas now, and I spend a lot of time when I'm in Texas explaining the East Coast to Texans and vice versa. And when East Coast friends hear about horrible things that Texas government or whatever has done, and sometimes they are legitimately horrible or bad, they'll say, "Oh, don't you Texans have any principles?" And I will say, Texans believe in community. They just don't believe that concepts of community need to be imposed upon them by a third party, which is sort of the government approach. And then the second thing I wanted to say, which will perhaps help us make the segue to the political situation, is one of the most profound things I heard after the collapse of the Soviet Union and all the other communist states has stuck with me. And I think it was a former Soviet citizen who now, 5 or 6 years into non-communist rule, had this epiphany that because of communism, that the Russians, the Soviets had grown up, become adults, not understanding the concept of giving to other people freely of their own volition. I think that's probably exaggerated, but nevertheless, he made the point that when government provides everything for you, it undercuts your humanity. And
And your resilience,
and I think
probably.
that's a fundamental uh, principle that drives a more little c conservative approach to how to organize
Mhm.
ourselves in society.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting and true. There's always two sides to the equation, right? What the government does and how people then conform to what the government is doing, or vice versa. I think the other factor, Julia, specifically to the idea that you don't need organizations, um,
I'm not saying you don't
sadly,
need organizations at all.
well,
By the
I
way.
know that you could go directly to the people. Sadly, and this is the other part of I've been in compliance for a very long time.
Mm,
I will tell you it won't take long for the fraudsters to get
of
there.
course.
Oh, of
And it
course,
won't,
there
Exactly.
has to be
you look at
regulation.
Katrina, you look at COVID, and unfortunately, the government's bias is toward that. We have to prevent that. We have to stop that. And they frequently will cut off their nose to spite their face in order to
Yes.
avoid the 5 years down the road, we're going to have to go out and prosecute the fraudsters.
Yeah, they're like the antibacterial that kills the good bacteria and the bad bacteria.